Hi, we're here with Jason Weiss from our NetBackup tech team to discuss SharePoint backup best practices. Did I get that right?
You
Jason?
did, absolutely, Bill. Thank you so much. So, yes, we're going to talk about NetBackup for Microsoft SharePoint and some of the best practices associated with not only backup but also recovery. So, for you as a customer or anybody that's interested in knowing about NetBackup best practices, you might have this on your mind if you're talking about upgrading your SharePoint environment. Maybe you're on SharePoint 2007 or 2010. As Microsoft continues to release new versions of SharePoint, you'll probably consider some of these options when you talk about upgrades. So in blue here, we've got our NetBackup master server. We've got two media servers. These could be the NetBackup appliances that support media server, which are purpose-built backup appliances, integrated media server with deduplication storage. So this could be a dedupe device. You could be backing up the tape. On the left-hand side here, we've got our SharePoint architecture, distributed architecture by nature. So you've got your SharePoint front-end, SharePoint index server, or an application server. These could be all on one. These could be on multiple different hosts. And then you have your SQL server for the SQL content databases. So as I already mentioned, some of the best practices are, we do have NetBackup provides version support. So all the way from 2007 to the latest functionalities of 2013. As part of the backup process, NetBackup actually issues a command called BP Resolver. So it actually, the NetBackup server communicates directly through the front-end server and runs a BP Resolver. What this allows you to do is it actually does an automatic discovery of the SharePoint topology, the SharePoint farm. So it understands where the components are, if it needs to communicate to the index server or the application server, or likely the SQL server. So as part of the backup process, when you do a backup, it backs up the SharePoint indexes, the SharePoint configuration, as well as the content databases for SharePoint specifically. So best practices perspective, there are two policies. One is the farm level. So for disaster recovery, you want to make sure that the SharePoint farm is backed up. And then we also provide what's called GRT, or grant and restore technology. The GRT functionality does require that the backup occur to a disk-based storage unit because the database gets mounted on this disk device, and the NFS protocol is then used to extract or enumerate and pull the information out of the database to provide some of the GRT type functionality. What I mean by that is GRT functionality means individual lists, blogs, wikis, documents, lists, sites, subsites. And so we also provide support NetBackup does for versioning, and we talk about that in the restore. So as I talked about, the backup occurs. You have one policy for your SharePoint farm for disaster recovery. You can have another for GRT, the grant and restore technology. And so that's really the best way to back up. From a restore perspective, you can actually restore the SharePoint farm, or if you need to, go into the backup archive restore interface from the front-end server, initiate a restore request, and be able to redirect that either to the original location or alternate location. So just to conclude and wrap up some of the best practices, you could have farm level protection for your disaster recovery. So if you lose a SharePoint farm, you'd have that for disaster recovery. We also provide the GRT functionality, so ease of use, ease of restore to be able to extract out an individual list, document, blog, wiki. And lastly, the Windows perspective, which means you can back up the file systems, the registry, the system state. So this provides the complete best practice for protecting the Microsoft for SharePoint architecture and environment.
All right. Great, Jason. Thanks for your time, and thank you for watching.